was the most remarkably focused person I've ever met in my life. And the thing with focus is it's not sort of like this thing you aspire to, or you decide on Monday, you know what, I'm going to be focused. It is every minute, why are we talking about this? This is what we're working on. You can achieve so much when you truly focus. And one of the things that Steve would say, because I think he was concerned that I wasn't, he would say, how many things have you said no to? And I would, honestly, I would have these sacrificial things, because I wanted to be very honest about it, and so I'd say, oh, I said no to this, and no to that. And but he knew that I wasn't vaguely interested in doing those things anyway. So there was no real sacrifice. What focus means is saying no to something that you, with every bone in your body, you think is a phenomenal idea, and you wake up thinking about it, but you say no to it because you're focusing on something else.
He had a single-mindedness and an attention to detail unlike anyone I've ever seen. He wanted to engineer every aspect of the user experience, let's say, for the iPhone, including what happened when you walked into the store, how you paid for it, or how you paid for an iPad with your, how you saw it in the store, obviously bought it from AT&T, how you paid for an Apple product with your credit card in the store, how if the iPhone was sent to you, or the iPhone was delivered to you, or the iPad was delivered to you, what it looked like in the box, the detail of the box, what it was like to open the box, what you saw when you first opened the box, how you bought an application, how you connected to the network. I mean, every excruciating detail he was personally involved in. I don't think people really understand. Edison had this comment, it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Steve was a god of perspiration. I mean, Steve worked incredibly hard. It wasn't just his intellectual gifts, which were enormous, but how he took that horsepower and applied it tirelessly until the entire problem was solved. I've never seen anyone like that. He would just not let go of a problem until it was solved. I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's not that he just put in the hour. If he had to stay up all night, if he stayed up night after night after night, he would call me up and say, Larry, let's get together. We saw each other a lot. He'd come over to my house. I'd go over to his house. I said, Steve, I'm not coming over if you make me watch Toy Story again. I've watched 73 different versions of Toy Story. Now, I know the new version of Render Man is 4% better than the one I saw last week, but I'm not watching this thing again. So, Larry, you got to see, you won't believe the different the shadows look. I don't care. You don't understand. I'm not coming unless you promise me that you're not going to make me watch. I promise, but just a little of it.
This is before the movie came out.
Before the movie came out, yeah. And that was Steve. And we go over there, and he'd have the mock-up of the Apple stores, and we go over to the warehouse, and Oracle did the software, by the way, for the retail software, and he's just complaining about it to me. Steve, it's Sunday. You're saying how terrible the Oracle software is to check. And I'm in your stupid store in the warehouse. You know how many times I've come over on Sunday, and we're walking through the checkout but that was Steve until it was perfect. And then once it was perfect, and then he moved on to the next problem. But working obsessively until he had a solution that was insanely great is what Steve was all about. And an idea, I'll go back to the network computer. We had this idea, I had this idea. It's a simple device attached to the internet. I'm now done. Idea now fully formed. Boy, that was a good idea. What do you think, Steve? That's a good idea. Building that thing is really hard. Let me tell you what you have to do. A, B, C, And then Steve then proceeds, to build the iPad. There's a big difference. There's a reason. Ideas, there are a lot of good ideas.
There are a lot of good ideas in this
There are a
room.
lot of good ideas. Translating a good idea into a great product is unbelievably hard. There are so many details. People accuse Steve of stealing, the Macintosh from Xerox, with the Alto computer. I was at Xerox PARC, so I used the Alto a lot. Finishing the Alto and turning that into the Macintosh was enormously complicated. And there were so many things that had to be done that Xerox had not done. There were a few good ideas in the Xerox machine. But Steve would translate good ideas, not always his good ideas, but he would translate good ideas into finished product unlike anyone in our industry. Henry Ford didn't invent the car, but he made it cheap, and he made it popular, and he made it accessible to the American people. Steve would translate good ideas into finished, brilliant products. I've had discussions with Steve and Steve in meetings where he didn't agree in the beginning, and he was persuaded, and when he changes like that, boom.
This is what Tim Cook was saying last night.
Bang. He'll just move over to the best idea. What he wants is the best idea, the best product, the best movie, the best store, the best everything. And if he thinks someone's better than he is in a certain area, he's very good at listening. If he thinks you're full of it, he'll tell you. If there's an unsolved problem and you're at work, can you think about anything else? So if you want to know if you're like Steve Jobs, if you are unable to think about anything but this problem.
So if you want to go to the movies.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with being successful. You're not thinking about, oh my God, if I'm Steve Jobs, I can go out with this person, I can date this person, and I can buy this house. And if you think about the benefits of being famous and rich, then you're missing the whole point. If you want to know you're like Steve Jobs, it's very simple. You are unable to think about anything about these serious problems at work, and that's all you can do, and you obsess about it until you solve it, and then you move on to the next thing, and you obsess about that until you solve it, and then you obsess about this until you solve it. It is, that obsessive compulsive personality combined with this incredibly, and obsessive compulsive personalities are not all that rare among successful people. The obsessive compulsive personality combined with this peculiar genius of Steve's, which was both aesthetic. We talked about the building. He loved architecture and design. He loved. He was an amateur architect. He loved product design.
He wasn't an engineer, though. He wasn't a coder.
He wasn't a programmer. I'm a programmer, but he had enough knowledge of what went into into the product, whether it was the microprocessor or the operating system. He had a pretty deep knowledge about all of that technology. Very smart boy. He learned very fast. Might not have been a professional programmer, but his understanding of the complete system, the gestalt, the whole thing, the whole system, and how to fit those pieces together. He would take this puzzle and assemble these pieces into the iPad. And there's a lot of complicated software pieces. And he'd work with the engineers, and he was a great editor. He was a wonderful editor, at least in terms of editing the software and user interface as it was developed. He was a great editor of process in the stores. He would constantly review things and continuously make them better until he was marginally satisfied, and then they could release the product. If you have that kind of obsession combined with Picasso's aesthetic and Edison's inventiveness, then you were the next Steve Jobs. Apple became the most valuable company on earth, and it wasn't even one of Steve's goals. He never, he wasn't trying to be rich. He wasn't trying to be famous. He wasn't trying to be powerful. He was obsessed with the creative process and building something that was beautiful.